Good morning, everybody, and a big thanks for jumping on this webinar. Today is all about network security, and the goal of this webinar is for us to provide you with an overview of Umbrella and Meraki security solutions, how they integrate with each other as part of a layered security strategy, why this is important in the current security landscape, and how these solutions can help strengthen or support your existing security strategy. And we'll be brave enough to demonstrate how these work with a live demo. I'm delighted to be joined by Andy Hook today, who is a cybersecurity specialist and pre-sales specialist, to share his expertise with us all and to take us through this. But just before that, I know that many of you here today have not previously worked with Axonex, so I'll just make a brief introduction as to who we are and why we're hosting this webinar. So Axonex are an IT and cybersecurity provider with services that range from hardware and design through to IT support and fully managed services. But a real focus for us as an organisation is on cybersecurity, working with businesses of all sizes, really on their cyber strategy and achieving that through technology and effective security management. Which brings us back to the topic of today. So let's face it, it's a complicated landscape out there for IT teams, especially from a cybersecurity perspective. There's more cloud services, applications, mobile devices, and the ever-demanding user. So you have to facilitate this, but at the same time, as an organisation, you need to ensure that your security is not compromised, that you have visibility into what's happening across your network and can control access and set policies. So that's why today we're talking about Cisco, Umbrella and Meraki security solutions that we know can help overcome these challenges. So throughout the webinar, please feel free to drop a question if you have one into the chat box. We'll have time at the end to answer those questions. If you have a burning question that you really like asked during or throughout the webinar, we can answer that as well. So that's enough from me, and I will pass you over to Andy.
So this morning we're going to be talking about Umbrella, specifically how that ties into Meraki, the integration. 6 months, 9 months ago, when Meraki first started to integrate with Umbrella, it really wasn't an integration. It was really much more of a market exercise. This is two products that work together. They've since worked and actually got a proper API integration, and actually now it gives you some really quite nice advantages. So the format of today is I'm going to talk a bit about Umbrella, how it works, where it fits in. I'm going to do the same with Meraki and just have a quick overview of Meraki. And then I'm going to jump onto my Umbrella dashboard and my Meraki dashboard and show those working. Now, whenever I demonstrate and do kind of customer facing demos, I use my own environment. So this is a live network. You may see things that my boy's been trying to do, and I'll reference him many times during this session because we have a bit of an ongoing battle, me and my 15-year-old boy, as you can well imagine. Started when he nicked my iPad and instead of making notes, took screenshots, forgetting, of course, that those appeared in my photo stream. So I knew he was trying to get to things that he shouldn't be doing. So since then, we've been having this ongoing battle, which has been great from a security point of view, but it's also been great because it actually gives real world sort of examples of how this stuff can be used and how it shows you benefits. So firstly, let's have a quick talk about Umbrella and where it fits. Now, no Cisco presentation about Umbrella would be anywhere without this slide. Shows that Umbrella really is that first fit. It's that first line of defense. Trying to replace your AV on your endpoints. We're not trying to replace your firewalls or anything else that's happening on your site existingly. What we're doing is we're adding to that. Umbrella was bought from OpenDNS, so it's got a good reputation out in the market. And Cisco have taken that, and they've, at the same time, they also bought a product called CloudLock, which is a cloud. What they've been doing in the background is working quite hard to bring a lot of those features in. So if you've used OpenDNS historically, Although umbrella is the same, it's also more now, so it'd be worth having another look. The nice thing is that because umbrella works on the DNS request, and we'll talk about that mechanism in a minute, it means that actually we can block a lot of the malware before it actually becomes an issue. The story that Cisco loved talking about is the WannaCry outbreak a couple of years ago. I mean, there are lots of others. But the NHS trust that got hit with that outbreak, there were 2 NHS trusts that didn't get badly blown by WannaCry. The first had just finished a patch releases, so their machines weren't vulnerable to the exploit that WannaCry made use of. So that is the first thing. If make sure your patching's up to date. But the second trust, their machines were vulnerable, so they had WannaCry in their environment. But they were trialing Umbrella. So when that malware tried to call back to its command and control, it didn't. It couldn't get there, and that blocks malware. People that write malware, they're inherently, I won't say they're lazy, they're doing a very good job out there. It's a big battle out there, but they use all the same tools that any programmer uses. They use DNS, they use DNS entries for a lot of their malware calls. So if you've got some malware already inside your environment, then it's going to mess with its communications back to malware sites, phishing sites, command and control sites. Help protect that data inside. Cisco put on this slide, the internet access is faster. What they really mean there is that Umbrella really isn't adding latency into your environment. If anyone's ever used a traditional proxy, we're used to that adding quite a large chunk of latency because all the traffic's going through to one box and then it's being pushed out to the web and then it's being filtered and then it's being sent back. Here, because DNS is part of that request anyway, when you hit enter on .co.uk, the first thing you do is a internet lookup. Then as long as the umbrella platform is servicing those names as quickly as Google does or as quickly as your ISP does, then you're not going to see a degradation in that throughput. And if you look across the globe, because Umbrella is a global service, it's available from data centers everywhere, then if you're looking at the figures and the stats, Umbrella and Google are pretty much neck and neck throughout the globe. And Cisco love this, provision globally in minutes. Well, I think we all know that that's probably being a little optimistic because I don't think I could get change control through for any changes in my organization in minutes, let alone get it provisioned. But what they're trying to say here is it's not difficult. So let's have a quick look at how it works. Well, OpenDNS is a name service, so it's in the cloud. Effectively, when I'm trying to go to a good site, ebay.co.uk, what is the IP address for eBay? And the name server will reply with eBay's IP address, and I can kick off a web session. Okay, so that's how it works in a normal site that you don't really have any problems anybody going to. What happens if we try and go to internetbadguys.com? Now, internetbadguys.com is a great site because I just wish all malware sites were named so that you knew that they weren't good. But this is a real site. It's actually a test phishing site. So it should kick up all sorts of alarms and errors when you try and go to it. So if I were to sit and type in internetbadguys.com on my PC, what's the IP address for Internet Bad Guys? Returning that bad address, that 67.215.92 address, well, Umbrella is going to return a different address. And that's not the IP address of Internet Bad Guys, it's the IP address of a Umbrella blocking page. No traffic actually flows to internetbadguys.com. That is in essence how it works. What I don't want you to do is have this idea that it's just a black and a white list, because there's a lot more going on in the background. There's lots of ways that this traffic gets onto this kind of onto the database. There's all the power of the Cisco Talos security organization, which has been started when Cisco moved into firewalls and started when they bought sort of the iron porters, the web and the email security appliances, and has just grown with every acquisition Cisco have made. It's now probably the largest privately held security intelligence database outside of kind of governments and the FBI and the CIA and those types of guys. It is huge. Just to put some context around just how much data Talos are seeing, at the end of the day, data is what gives you good security intelligence. They see approximately 600 billion emails a day. Now, if you think about the global percentages for email, roughly 80% of all the world's email is rubbish, either just spam or actually malicious. So if you think about that, that's 11 noughts, 400 billion emails a day of either malicious or spam mail. That basically gives you some idea that, you know, get a good idea if you what is rubbish and what is good. And the same goes with DNS. The DNS, although the numbers aren't on the surface as impressive, OpenDNS sees 3% of the world's DNS requests, and of an awful lot of requests still gives them some very big data to work from. So one of the things that they do is they use quite a lot of artificial intelligence and machine learning and AI. I don't know if anyone's ever played with Shazam, the music application. Hear a piece of music and you go, oh, what's that? Shazam, listen to it, analyzes the waveforms and comes back and tells you it's Madonna Ray of Light or whichever single it's whatever piece of music is playing. Umbrella actually uses a very similar algorithm to that, that actually looks at the DNS request patterns. And there's some fairly obvious patterns that you see when the DNS or a malware attack is about to be launched. Quite often, initially, you'll see a bit of testing. So you'll see a new application, you'll see a new domain pop up. You'll then see a few DNS requests for it. They'll then go back and they'll do a bit more debugging of their program and get it working. And then you may see another blat of testing before the big malware attack is actually launched. And if you can actually start to look at those global requests for all the sites and go, hang on, that looks like a testing pattern. Stop that before it goes through. And that way they can actually stop a lot of these attacks before they're even launched. The other ones, of course, is the natural language processing. Internetbadguys.com is fairly obviously a bad site, but Microsoft spelt with a 1 instead of a T at the end. You look at it quickly in a link, you probably won't even spot it. So there's some natural language processing that also goes on that starts to look at some of these phishing sites, some of these sites that aren't quite the same as they should be. Starts to give this platform quite a lot of power. Okay, so Umbrella is a cloud-based name server. You can all point your DNS to Umbrella now, and it will answer you whether it be good, bad, or malicious. If it has an idea of where that policy, where that request is coming from, then it can assign a policy. So if you've got a subscription and it says, okay, I know where this traffic's coming from, I can then assign the policy that you set in the cloud. So that's the first thing just to think about with Umbrella, is it needs to know where that policy is. So the easiest way, and this really is very simple to do, pop your external IP address of your firewall where all your internet traffic is onto the outside world. And as long as you pop that address into the Umbrella cloud, then when it sees a DNS request for this, what's eBay's IP address, it knows this is coming from my site, so it can then apply my policy. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And that probably will take you 5 minutes to set up. point your IP address from your external firewall, your DNS, into the cloud, and set up a base policy. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, pretty much not going to be too long. That means that all the kit on this site and the traffic from the same address. So quite a lot of people, that's fine. For some, they want a bit more granularity than that. So the next thing you could use is the roaming client. Now, there are a couple of roaming clients. One, you could use the AnyConnect plugin. So if you're already using AnyConnect and the Cisco firewalls, you can use a free plugin. Not if you're using somebody else's firewalls, that's not a problem at all. But you could use the roaming client, the umbrella roaming client installer that just acts as a DNS interceptor. So it just gets in the way and it says, okay, well, instead of sending my DNS request to Google, I'm going to send it to Umbrella. It's a bit of an extended request because it also adds in its identity. Roaming client 1234 is asking what's IP address. And you can then use that to give you a form of granularity. But this has another advantage. And let's be honest, when do you do dodgy things? I know I don't tend to do anything dodgy in the office. I don't click the funny video. I don't click the link in the emails because I'm too busy running around doing my day job. But when I'm out in a hotel, I've stopped for a coffee in Starbucks or McDonald's, and I just jump onto their wireless. I could very easily click a link that I shouldn't do. The nice thing is with that roaming client intercepting and forwarding that traffic to Umbrella, what's eBay's IP address? Roaming client 6789 is asking. Well, it then means I get protection when I'm off the network. So I don't have to, I'm not tied to being on behind my corporate firewalls in my corporate infrastructure. I've got protection wherever I am. The end goal, the panacea, is simple virtual appliance that can be installed in your environment that acts as a DNS forwarder. So I point all my DNS to that local site, and then it will go and it'll say what's eBay's IP address. It's got the integration into Active Directory now. Say James in sales is asking. So that gives us that Active Directory group or Active Directory username granularity. So that's pretty cool. And it does mean that actually deploying Umbrella can be very straightforward. We just need to create an identity in the cloud, and I'll show you that in a second. We need to send our DNS traffic out to Umbrella, and these couple of IP addresses, 222 and 220, they're Anycast, so they'll forward you to the nearest data center. Come in, and if we want to, we can start to refine the policies, the acceptable use policy, block pages, give it some pretty icons, create some black and white lists, and then jump out and test and make sure you're being seen. That's sort of positioning that umbrella piece. So let's just have a look at where Cisco are going with this, because of course they've taken on OpenDNS and rebranded it Umbrella. Stopping there, I already talked a little bit about Cloud Lock, bringing in some of the features of that application awareness, and I'll show you the application visibility within with Umbrella that was never in OpenDNS. The first step onto what Cisco are branding, Gartner are branding Secure Internet Gateway. So be prepared to see a lot more of this over the next 6-8 months from Cisco. Looking to provide that cloud-based security, giving you cloud firewalls, giving you much more protection when you're out and about, all based around Umbrella as that first line, but adding to it and growing it as they move forward. So let's now just park the Umbrella for a moment, a bit about Meraki, and then when I jump into the demos, then I'll just tie those two together so you can see. So I don't really want to spend long talking about Meraki. Power of Meraki is the dashboard. It is a single pane of glass that gives you access to all your Meraki devices where they are. Just to put that in context, I'm sat in Cirencester at the moment in the office. When I jump on and show you the kit and we start to go in and look at the configuration of that kit, that is down in Somerset. It's the kit that's running my home network and my mother-in-law's network. She's 84, never remembers the SSID. So if somebody ever turns up and wants access to the wireless, they never can. But I can get on now to her wireless and actually help them out and get them ordered. So Meraki started with the access points. They started in Boston as part of an MIT project. And basically they set up a cloud, an internet server that creates a tunnel, or rather the MRs, the access points, create a tunnel to that server to pass configuration down. And plug access points in around the town of Boston to give free wireless, and then manage them all from that single pane of glass. Realised then that actually this is really quite a clever idea. Quickly left MIT, set up Meraki as the company, and have grown their portfolio significantly. So the bits we'll be talking about today are the MRs, because of their interaction with Umbrella. We're talking a bit about the MXs, which is their security appliance, but not forgetting that there's cloud-based, cloud-managed switches, the mobile manager, the MDM, the clever cameras, which are more than just security cameras. These really are starting to use that camera as a sensor to give you a lot of visibility, awful lot of intelligence that you can then write your own kind of applications for. Really clever stuff, way beyond what I'm capable of doing. But things like if you've got them in a retail environment and you've got a display stand on a sales, you could actually then see how many people go by, and to some extent you can even start to judge and gauge people's emotions. So if you've got a stand, you can try and see what people are thinking as they're stood by it. Some really almost scary things. And then one of the latest additions is Meraki Insights. Well worth having a look at, and I'll show you briefly in the lab if I've got time. Sits on the MX and uses the MX really as a sensor. Because the MX is sitting on the edge of your network, all traffic flowing out of your network out to the cloud. So obviously the most critical business application that I've got running at home is Netflix. So I monitor Netflix as a business critical application because I get a lot of earache if it doesn't work properly. And if it were to have a problem, if I see kind of buffering or glitches, use Meraki Insights me that is the problem on my local LAN? Is it on my local client? Is it the wireless? Is it the wide area network? Have I got a BT problem? Further out, is it a domain problem? Is it a problem at the other end? And it really just gives you a finger pointing tool to point fingers and save you time in troubleshooting. It gives you some pretty graphs. When we go in, it'll all be nice and green and it'll all work. Okay, so we've talked about Meraki being a cloud-based solution. A couple of things that really do need pointing out. It is only management data that's going up to that cloud. So there is no user data, none of your user traffic is going to go up to that cloud when it comes out of the MX. It's just going to go to the site that it's meant for, the destination that it's meant for. The nice thing, of course, with this is it's scalable. When Meraki started, they had about 170,000 networks when Cisco bought them. They're now up to 2 million networks, all with multiple pieces of kit in. So that is a very scalable, both for Cisco and Meraki, but also for you. You can, spin up networks within your organization, add devices to them as you need. I quite often, spin up a network to show for a demonstration and then remove it all and start it all again. thing. The part of the, the when you buy the Meraki, it includes a license for that cloud dashboard. But that also gives you ongoing access to the new features that are appearing. So you're not tied to your current feature set. You've got constantly evolving data set. That we're going to look at later is actually the umbrella integration on the access points. That wasn't in the original MXs and the MRs. So I'm running an old MR32 that's had the software upgrade that now means that it can integrate into that Meraki umbrella cloud. So those security things and all those features as they go. The figures for Talos, I've forgotten I popped this slide in. It's always worth just pointing a few of them out just because they make such big reading. There's that 600 billion emails, 1.5 million malware samples. That's a lot of intelligence. I'm not going to dwell too much on this because I talked about it earlier, but that's there just so you can see those numbers. Okay, so let me now attempt, as long as the odds don't conspire against me, to actually go and show you this in the real world. Here I've got two dashboards. I've got my umbrella dashboard and I've got my Meraki dashboard. Now they always time out, so let's just quickly log in here. First of all, we'll just give you a whistle-top tour of the Meraki of the umbrella dashboard. We'll do the same with the Meraki dashboard, and then hopefully we'll tie the two together. So when you come into umbrella, you'll see a bit of an overview page. Now let me just put this in perspective. This is my account that runs my home network. So I've not got many devices on it. So if I scroll down and you'll get this overview, you probably won't see much going on today. My boy's actually on half term at the moment, so it's probably not a bad time to be demoing. Just open that range up a bit, you'll see a bit more traffic, you'll see a few more things happening. So here you can see we've got some security blocks coming in, and I could then start to drill down and see what they are. I can come down here and I can see that yesterday there was some malware detected, and I could start to drill down and see what that is. For command and control traffic, so there's nothing inside trying to get out. Just for a change, there's no crypto mining. I've got a Trojan on one of my Macs downstairs. Occasionally throws out crypto mining traffic. I keep meaning to go and change it, but I keep it's always nice because it usually generates me a bit of traffic. And then I can scroll down here and I can start to look at the applications that have been seen on my network. So you can see that I've discovered in the last sort of 3 months, sort of nearly 840 different cloud applications. I can start to see what those applications are and where they're sitting, and I could then drill down and get a bit more data, but this is just the overview. And then I can start to see the identities that are giving me the most blocks. We'll talk about what these things are in a minute, but if you had the Active Directory integration, then this would be usernames and Active Directory groups rather than meaningless names to you at the moment. Gives me that overview of what's going on in my environment. And trust me, when this WebEx is finished, I'll be drilling down into this one just to see what's been going on. So I'll be drilling in to come into the activity search just to try and start to see what's going on and why Eurosport tickets is clicking off and triggering a security event. Now, I just want to quickly show you the way I've got this deployed. We talked about those deployment methods earlier, and I use pretty much most of them. Here you can see that I've got my home external IP address in the platform and sending me to a policy, and that's active. I briefly mentioned that I've got my mother-in-law. This is my mother-in-law's network, and you can see that her IP address is inactive. Well, the reason is for that is that she's on a dynamic DNS. She's just on a BT Home Hub provided service. So what's happened is that IP address has changed. Problem, so I can get round it by using a little updater. It's not a problem for her because everything she does over the wireless, and I protect the wireless with the integration I'm going to show you later. Also have some roaming computers. My boy will have turned his off, so yep, there's my boy's MacBook. So it's his Mac. He bought it with his own money, so I don't feel I can force him to have it. But my Mac downstairs has got the client installed, and that's up and working and protecting at a roaming client. I do need to go and kick my boy and make him turn that back on. So obviously when his laptop's not at home, he'll get the protection. And if I had the Active Directory deployment, then when I come down here into Sites and Active Directory, I'd see that virtual appliance and I'd see it connecting into the AD, and then I could use Active Directory for that piece. Don't, unless anybody fancies buying me a server for home. No, never mind. Let's go and have a quick look at the policies. Really, the main thing with the policies, I just want to show you the names so that when we jump into the Meraki dashboard, you'll start to see that integration, you'll see that pulling in. Number of policies. This one at the top is one I've just been using for testing. Somebody was interested in blocking Facebook as an application and just wanted to make sure that not only would it block the web page, but it would also block the application on a mobile that was on the internet, on the wireless, and it does. But I just jumped on to test it. So there's my mother-in-law's policy. There's my policy that I use. I live at Chaff House, so there's my adult policy, not so limited. Boys, Chaff Youth, limited. In reality, these are pretty much the same, but my boy doesn't need to know that. So if I just jump in and have a look at that policy, relatively simple. You just select the identities, and if I just drill down, you can see I can select that user groups, networks, roaming computers, so anything that can look at. And these odd looking things here, these are the wireless and the Meraki integrations coming in. So my network is called Aardvark, and this is the SSID, so this policy will be applied if you're on that channel. In a second. Come in and look at the security posture. So these are the security settings. The security is very different from that content. Acceptable use is whether somebody should be able to go to a gambling site, a shopping site, they're at work, whether you deem that appropriate for a work environment. And that very much is a business decision, what you want to let your people talk to. Security settings is much more of a security posture, and I block pretty much everything. You're always going to block malware, command and control, and phishing, of course, but you may not. You may have a business reason to go to newly seen domains. I've fallen foul of this just recently, in that one of the mobile phone games that I play just released an update. And that update had a newly seen domain in it, not being seen very often. So for 24, 48 hours, my game stopped working because that newly seen domain was being blocked by this security category. Obviously, I don't have a business case really for using it, so I just left it, and I just left it for a couple of days, and now it all works again. The security settings, and you probably pretty much need to choose which you're going to block. And then you kind of come on to the acceptable use, so what you want to allow. So this is a fairly standard category list. Choose a high, medium, low, or you can come and create your own. Create a list, I will always include gambling. The reason for that is most people want to block gambling at work. They'll tend to include that, but it also gives a very nice site that you can test with. On site a few years ago doing an iron port, which is a web proxy install. Really, without thinking, decided I'd try and test my policy and used one of the adult sites, shall we say. My face went white as my policy hadn't worked. The guy who was sat next to me, who told me it should have worked, went white. In the middle of an office, and things are appearing on the screen that shouldn't been appearing on the screen in the middle of an office. So I very quickly slammed my laptop, went in somewhere quiet so I could reset everything. And I've only ever tested with gambling sites since. And if I get time to show you the testing I do later, then you'll see me using poker and Sun Bingo, because nobody gets fired for Sun Bingo appearing on a screen. So that gives you these policies. Let me move on before I get too distracted. And then you can kind of come in, the application settings here, because there's a better, more graphical way that I think is more interesting. So I'll show you that in a second. But then there's global black and white lists and block pages, and also tying back into that infrastructure, that Cisco view of security, ability to manage and analyze those files in the AMP cloud. So we're also going to be feeding that intelligence with that if we want to. So that's cool. So that gives us our umbrella policy. My Meraki dashboard, and then hopefully we'll tie the two together. Oh, before I do, I'll show you that application visibility stuff. So if I come down into the reporting, you saw the activity search and the security activity. There's kind of things like top domains and top categories, all the types of things you'd expect. But there's also this app discovery. And this gives me quite a nice view of what's going on my network. One of the biggest things with IT is that shadow IT piece. Who's plugged something in, who's going places that they shouldn't do. And this gives me a good view of the applications that have been seen on my network. You can drill down and start to look at the risky applications, focusing on these high risk or the high risk categories, and drill down and look at those, see where they are. So you can see I've got some dodgy things going on here that I need to go and have a look at. Some collaboration that's not quite viewed as being legit. So some very risky some apps. And start to drill down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the cloud storage, because it makes quite a nice story, and it's nice and easy to tell, because we're all used to seeing cloud storage. Now, I've got some that I've approved. So you should see things like the Amazon. I take quite a lot of photographs, so I've used things like Flickr as photo storage. They're another photo storage site. But we're a Office 365 house, so I'm seeing Microsoft OneDrive. If you were looking at this for your organization, all the apps that have been seen, like Dropbox, which should be in here somewhere. Not been onto Dropbox, but Google Drive's as good an example as any. So we're a Microsoft house, but we're seeing Google Drive. I could come down here and look at the identities that have been requesting those Google Drive. Now, as I said, these are the Meraki identities, but if this was AD turned on, you could start to see who was using Google Drive. And then you could wander over and either take a softly approach and go, here, John, what's wrong with OneDrive? Do you not know how to use it? Do you need some help? Or you can actually come in and start to be a bit more aggressive and actually block that Google Photos as a service. I mentioned briefly was the SIG, it's that Secure Internet Gateway. One of the features that's going to this sort of in the roadmap, much expanding this block. You start to say, well, maybe I'm going to let you download from Google Photos, but not upload. So there's lots of really clever features like that sort of on the way. But at the moment we can just block it, and that gives you that visibility, which at the end of the day is key. If you know what's going on in your environment, protect it. You can decide whether it's appropriate for your environment and either stop it or manage it elsewhere. So that's the umbrella piece pretty much sort of touched on. There's obviously lots more we could go in and look at. But let's come and have a look at the Meraki dashboard. So if I just jump in, so this is the Meraki dashboard. Hopefully you can all see that. So anything new, it will give you, news updates on this side. And here you can see, if I just zoom out a bit, see positioned on a map where your networks are. You can see here I've got 3 networks. I've got mine, which is this one, the Aardvark, my mother-in-law's, which is Highlands, and then my test branch, which I just use when I'm testing. And when you drill down, you can start to see those appearing. And there you can see I live far too close for my mother-in-law for my liking, but it does mean I can get away without going and seeing it with being able to cloud manage it. If I just drill down into my home network, you can start to see what I've got. I've got to go and do some work. One of my certificates has expired. That's for the MDM. So I'm not able to manage these devices properly at the moment, so I won't show you that. But let's just position this so you can have a look. So my topology is relatively simple. MX as my firewall. I've got a switch with 4 ports active, so I've got lots of Hives, Sonos, bridges plugged into there as direct access, and I've got my access point. Notice this second access point is actually bridged, so that's a wireless mesh. In my house, there isn't any cabling running from the downstairs to the upstairs, so I use that to give myself some wired connectivity upstairs. There's a non-Meraki switch connected to this access point that I plug my home kit into for my lab. So that's my topology, nice and simple. Let's just go and have a look at the clients on there so you can see them. And it's my home network, so I've got lots of things you'd expect to see at home, my Alexas, Philips Hue, my Sonoses, all those phones where they've been connected onto the wireless. The Mac that I showed you that's downstairs, that's the one that's got the Trojan on. It's PS4, which we'll come back to later, and various other bits of just normal traffic and bits and pieces going on. I can start to drill down on these and go and look at them. I can also look at a high level and just try and get a feel of what's going on. You can tell it's half term. The boy's not been on his PlayStation for a while, but obviously that's come back up towards the top of the list. So there's lots more YouTube than usual. Normally we see Netflix and BBC iPlayer being up above YouTube, but obviously the way that he watches the telly is very different to how we watch the telly. And then iTunes and Spotify and all the usual social media things appearing in there. So this is just my normal home network. What I wanted to show you though was the wireless, because although this is my home network, well, I use it for testing, so I try and mimic what you may see in a real world environment. So I've got my 2 SIDs, if you like, mine, Chaff, and my boys, Chaff Youth. Very little difference between them, but what it does mean is if he annoys me, it means I can turn his wireless off and he can go sulk in his room for a bit until he calmed down. And I've got my guest access, and that's great. So anybody walks through the door, they can see this guest access because I'm using the DHCP on the access point. Then they can't see anything in my internal networks. They can't see my NAS, my home drives, my home computers. They can just get out to the internet. So it's great for my guest network. While they're there, I don't really want them doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. So this is where the kind of the umbrella ties in. Oh, that's a schoolboy error, isn't it? That's a phone on. Quickly turn that off. So, fine, and I can then come in and look at the firewalling, and I can do a little bit on the Meraki anyway. I can block adult traffic. Well, that's fine. That would probably be enough for my guest network, but in reality, we probably need a bit more blocking than that. So if I come up to my network and come on to general, notice they've got that, all these pages have got the same look. You've got the monitor, so you can look at things and then configure for changing them, and that's the same for all of these blocks down here. But if I come into this general and I scroll down to the bottom, the integration between my umbrella, my API key for my umbrella, and Meraki. And really, that's just generate the API key on the umbrella dashboard, cut and paste it into there with the secret that obviously you can't see here, to accounts are then linked. What does that actually give us? Well, the first thing we started talking about is this SSID control. So if I come into the firewall and traffic shaping, and this is on the wireless, so this is done on the Meraki MR, no need for the MX for this piece. You can see now it goes across and gets that umbrella dashboard. So here you can see for my chaff SSID, I'm going to apply that chaff not so limited policy. And if I just do that drop down, you should recognize these the umbrella policies that pulled in. What I can then do is I can jump onto my guest, and again the same thing, pulling in that umbrella policy into there. I'm just looked down at the time and I'm just conscious that the time's moving on. Really, I think that's showing you that power. The one thing I did want to say, of course, is obviously my boy is a bit clever. Obviously, the first thing he's going to try and do is going to go, well, why don't we change my name server? I'm not going to use the one that Dad sent me. I'm going to put in Google 8.8.8.8.48. Well, if he tries that, then DNS on the MR, the Meraki access point, is going to get in the way. It's going to say, no, you're not going to go to there, and send you off to anyway. Okay, so he's sitting there in his room going, well, that's all well and good. I now can't get out on my wireless. What happens if I plug into my, what about using my play at PS4 and using my going out on the internet on my PS4? Around that as well, because I found him trying to do this. And here I can apply this policy, this youth group policy. Now, obviously, I'm only applying these manually because I've not got Active Directory, but you can do group policy things automatically by group policy. But here you can see I've just come in and I've said, oh, that's a group policy. Oh, and notice it then ties into that same umbrella policy. So that stops him jumping around changing his name server on when he's on wireless, or jumping onto his PlayStation, or in fact plugging into the back of one of the Sonos speakers, which is the other one he tried. Stops him there. What it doesn't stop is him disconnecting and killing his umbrella client, which of course is the next one I need to go and fix. But you know, it's 15. I've got to give him some slack. Okay, so that's probably done in terms of the demo. Let me just tell you what I've told you. It's always a good policy. So we've jumped on and we've looked at the Meraki and the umbrella dashboards and given you a quick high-level view of what they do. We've shown you that how easy it is to integrate the two, and we've shown you just what that looks like. So now I'll throw open, see if there's any questions in the box. And what I would just highlight is the next steps. It's all very well and good coming in and having a look at some of these things and seeing these boxes, but there's no better way than actually trying them and seeing those from yourselves. The nice thing with Umbrella being a cloud-based platform is it's dead easy to trial. So my next step, my takeaway for you guys is talk to AxonX, talk to the guys that invite you to this webinar, and see how you can try it, see how you can test it, and actually try it in your own environment. You can mess up your own boy and your own kids and make their life a misery. Richard, that's me done. Any questions in the Q&A?
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, we've got some questions through, so I'll just read those out. So the MR directs DNS requests. What about the MX?
I didn't really touch on this, and I perhaps should have done. So that's basically looking at this. Here's the wireless. If I go into there, so it will intercept that DNS traffic and stop that jumping round. Now, on the security appliance on the MX, which is sitting on your edge, that's actually still in beta at the moment. That same sort of functionality where it'll automatically set that. And I found my boy actually doing this. So what I did was I just created just a couple of simple firewall rules. So I allowed DNS traffic. Yeah, DNS is on port 53. So this is allowing DNS out to Umbrella, and then I just denied DNS to anywhere else. So at the moment, if you were to try and pass Umbrella on the PS4, for example, this firewall rule will just stop it, and it won't get out to the internet. Obviously, when the beta comes out, which is, if it's not due out in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be very shortly. And when I say due out, I mean due out into the actual public release rather than being in an open beta, which it is currently. Then that will automatically happen, and it will automatically redirect, which means that he'll still have internet connection, so he's not going to break his laptop. He'll just get pushed to Umbrella, so we'll be able to bypass those rules. Oh, good question. Somebody was listening. Anything else, Richard?
Yeah, one more. Thanks for that. So how is Umbrella charged?
Umbrella's very much it's charged by seat, so by user. The nice thing for that is it's not a per device. They're not counting per devices and then stopping it when you hit that device count. So say you're a relatively small company and you've got 20 full-time employees, then it's simply you just buy 20 seats, and that will cover you for your laptop, your desktop, any printers, any servers in the building, got a phone or a tablet connected to the Wi-Fi that's being protected by Umbrella, then all those devices are protected. So there's basically it's a bit of a trust. They'll look at the DNS traffic and go, it's realistic traffic from 20 people, and as long as you're there or thereabouts, there's going to be no issues. And if there are, Cisco will be in touch to say, how many users have you got? Do we need to think about when you come to renewing, perhaps upping that users? But that's to be expected if you're abusing the rules. So yes, it's a per seat per user charge.
Excellent. Well, that's all the questions that have come through, and we're approaching 1:30. So, I mean, I guess we should start to wrap up the webinar now. So, I mean, I'd just first like to say, Andy, thanks for that. That was excellent, and the demo gods were definitely with you.
I did have some videos, but I didn't have to resort to those. I've had to do that once. It's always nice having a backup in your pocket.
It was, I mean, it's just a great way to see it in action. And for me, one of the things that always stands out is the stats behind Talos, and the insight there is just, I mean, it's just immense, really. Yeah, and then on the platform of Umbrella itself, like the levels of visibility, just looking at the DNS requests and the malware and malicious domains and everything.
I mean, for me, I mean, this is a relatively small deployment. This is just my. You can still see we've seen 800 odd applications, and you can even see my home network. I've got some security blocks. I've got spam malware trying to get in. You can see stuff being blocked here, some of which I'm going to have to go and have a look at. Yeah, on a live network with lots more people, you've got a lot more SecOps work to go and do just to make sure everything's been remediated and looked at.
Brilliant. So, I mean, I just thank everyone for attending today and for taking the time out. I hope you found that useful and interesting. And obviously, if you have any further questions, please feel free to get in contact with ActionX. You know, we're here to help and answer any questions. And I suppose just to reiterate as well, on the trial of Cisco Umbrella, it's really easy to set up, obviously with no hardware, and you just point your DNS to Umbrella. And if that's something you'd like to talk to our team about, please feel free to do so. I'll make sure I send out some further information after this webinar, including a recording, as well as some general more information that you can dig into. But other than that, thank you to Andy and thank you to you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.